Have you ever played a chord and felt like something was missing? Maybe your progressions sound predictable, or your songs lack that dramatic, tension-filled moment that makes people stop and listen. Well, there's one chord that could change everything: the diminished seventh chord. And if you're not using it, you're missing out on one of the most powerful harmonic tools in music. Today, we're going to break down exactly why this chord is so strong, how it functions, and how you can start using it in your own music to create tension, movement, and unexpected beauty. First, let's talk about its structure. The diminished seventh chord is notated with a small circle or degree symbol and the number 7, or as dim 7. These chords are also known as fully or full diminished chords. They are constructed with 4 notes, each a minor third apart. That is, 4 notes with 3 half steps between each note. This structure reveals an interesting symmetry, which we'll look at a little later on. You could also think of it as a diminished triad with an added natural sixth or diminished seventh interval. So C diminished seventh has the notes C, E flat, G flat and B double flat, which is the enharmonic equivalent of A. This is a tense mess of a chord, mainly due to the fact that it contains 2 tritones. Despite this, diminished seventh chords can be extremely useful in chord progressions, and are a powerful addition to your harmonic arsenal. You'll frequently see diminished seventh chords used as an enhanced version of the 7 chord in both major and minor keys. In major keys, the 7 chord is diminished, so by playing this as a full diminished chord, we're introducing a non-diatonic flat 6 note. This is a half step away from the 5th note, so if we use this chord in a 7-to-1 cadence, then it provides a pleasing resolution. For example, in the key of C major, the 7 chord is B diminished. If we play B diminished 7th, then we introduce an A flat note. This A flat note resolves nicely to the G note in the C major chord. This is also a really popular move in minor keys. In this case, the diatonic flat 7 chord is major, so we are borrowing the 7 diminished triad from the parallel major key. If you play this as a diminished 7th chord, then it introduces the leading tone, which is a half step below the 1 tonic note of the minor key. This provides a really strong pull to the 1 minor chord in the key, and is a widely used idea. For example, if we take the B diminished 7th chord again, but use it in the C minor key this time, then it desperately wants to resolve to 1. If you're finding this useful, then give the video a like. It really helps more people to discover these tips. And if you'd like more insights like this every week, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video that could take your songwriting to the next level. Another easy way to use dominant 7th chords is as a predominant in both major and minor keys. This is done by playing the 2 diminished 7th chord before the 5 chord. So if we continue with our C minor key theme, we can play the 2 chord D diminished as a diminished 7th. Playing this before the 5 dominant 7th, G7, creates an enhanced version of the popular 2-5-1 progression. You can do the same in major keys, despite the diatonic 2 chord being minor in major keys. For example, here's how it would sound in the key of C major. The 2 diminished 7th can also be used to move directly back to the 1 tonic chord. This means this chord can be used in a variety of ways to enhance or extend cadences. Here are a few interesting ideas in the key of C minor. You could also use them in major keys. Let's look further at the symmetry that is integral to the diminished 7th chord. If you think back to the C diminished 7th example that we started with, all of the notes were a minor third, or 3 half steps, apart. Here's a visualization of this chord. Because of this symmetrical nature, any of the 4 notes can be the root. For example, E flat diminished 7th has the notes E flat, G flat, A and C. Another way of thinking about this is that you can invert these chords. You just move to a diminished 7th chord on a different root. What this also means is that there are only 3 unique diminished 7th chords. That's because there are 12 notes in Western music, and if you divide this by 4 for the 4 notes in diminished 7th chords, then you are left with 3. You can see this represented on screen now. This symmetry is a real superpower of diminished 7th chords that makes them so useful. It also reveals something interesting about the example progressions that we looked at a bit earlier. The 2 diminished 7 and the 7 diminished 7th chords are actually the same chord. For example, B diminished 7th has the notes B, D, F and A flat, and D diminished 7th has the notes D, F, A flat and B. This chameleon nature of the diminished 7th means it can be the root to several different chords. In fact, if you think that the chord could lead to both a major and minor tonic, then it can lead us to 8 different chords. This is why it's sometimes known as the crossroads chord. So if we use the B diminished 7th again, we know it leads to C major and C minor as the 7 chord. But if we treat the note D as the root, then it can lead us to E flat major and E flat minor. You can do the same with the F and G sharp root notes. Have a listen to all 8 in this next example. Before we jump into secondary leading tone chords, I need to be real with you for a second. I love making these videos, but right now I'm barely holding this channel together. My laptop is dying, my gear is outdated, and without your help, I simply can't keep creating. If you've ever got value from my videos and want to see more, please consider donating at ko-fi.com/writersong. Even a small amount makes a massive difference. The link's also in the description. Thank you so much for keeping this channel alive. Diminished 7th chords' desire to resolve upwards means they can be used as a secondary approach chord to any diatonic major or minor chord. The secondary leading tone chords are easy to find. You just play a diminished 7th chord with a root note half a step below your target chord. For example, if you had a 1-2-5 progression in the key of C major, you could play a C sharp diminished 7th chord as an approach to the 2 chord D minor. Here's how that sounds. These chords are similar to secondary dominant chords. Secondary dominant chords create a dominant relationship with a chord other than the tonic 1 chord. These are written as 5, followed by a slash, and then the target chord. Secondary leading tone chords create a leading tone cadence with the chord other than the tonic. They are written as 7, followed by a slash and the target chord. In the next example, I'll use both types of chord to enhance an otherwise predictable 1-5-6-4 progression in the key of C major. Secondary leading tone chords also work well when played as half diminished or -7 flat 5 chords. I'll link a video at the end of this one if you want to learn more about these chords. Using -7 flat 5 leads to a smoother, less tense feel, particularly when moving to a major chord. Have a listen to the next C major key example to appreciate the difference. There's nothing to stop you using -7 flat 5 before a minor chord. Let's have a listen to both chord types when approaching the A minor chord in this C major key example. You may have noticed something about these examples which reveals the most common way to use secondary leading tone chords. This is as a passing chord between 2 diatonic chords that are a whole step apart. This fills the gap, smoothing out the transition. You can see on screen where these gaps exist in major keys, between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and 5 and 6. You usually find these chords for a short amount of time, towards the end of a measure. This is due to the tense nature that we've discussed. We're not planning to linger on them for too long, just wave hello as we pass by. They can help you to breathe new life and interest into otherwise tired or boring chord progressions. Check out this 1, 2, 4, 5 progression with a couple of secondary passing tone chords that last just a beat at the end of the relevant bars to freshen things up. You might also see diatonic major or minor chords temporarily turned into diminished seventh chords. This is most common with the one tonic chord. You'll find this in blues turnarounds and jazz where it's called the cadential diminished chord. For example, look at this 2-5-1 progression in the key of C major. After the 5 chord G7, rather than resolving straight back to 1, we played a diminished seventh on the same root as 1. This provides a tense, nostalgic sweetness that resolves nicely into the standard 1 chord. The problem with diminished seventh chords is that they are a fiddly, tense part of the seventh chord universe. Learn about some simpler diatonic seventh chords that you can use straight away by watching the video on screen now.